Boston University. But the Reverend Joseph E. Lowry, president of the Southern Christian Leadership Council, said, "History is caught up in Dr. King's footprints and will hardly be disturbed by the absence of some footnotes." But when the Reverend Ralph David Abernathy, a close friend of Dr. King, confirmed what was widely known, that Dr. King had not always been faithful to his wife, Abernathy was widely criticized. They felt that the mystical figure is more important than the flesh and blood man who died fighting for the civil rights movement in Memphis, and who died for it in Memphis in 1968. Keep silent for the higher good with their argument. But Mr. Abernathy said, "The truth shall make you free," and he boldly as anybody, wrote about Dr. King's wisdom and his intellect and his prophetic nature. Now, those who were angry with Ralph David Abernathy did not deny his allegations, just that you should not have written about a hero's failure. But we need to remember something. Today we don't honor a statue. We honor a real man. A real man. Heroes often let us down, but unless we learn to lend our admiration to human beings, failings and all, then only the petrified saints can challenge and satisfy us. But Ralph David Abernathy was right. We must never fear the unvarnished and uncomfortable truths. This is the only tenable view with the complexity and ambiguity that truth brings. History shows that great people are not always saints. They're not always perfect. They're not always, now you're the exception. Seldom are they conventional men and women. And greatness does not equal sainthood or even sweetness. Few of our political heroes and few of the heroes in the Bible could stand the scrutiny of bright lights on their lives and dealings with other people. Yet there is no doubt that God worked and works through them. Martin Luther King Jr. was not a perfect man, but he was a great man. He was a wise man. He was a good man. Toward the end of his life, his opponents tested his commitment to nonviolence in so many ugly, violent ways. But he held to it as his moral compass. Nobel Peace Prize winner and social activist, he was a preacher at heart. He galvanized the modern civil rights movement and led it nobly while he lived and died for it. And perhaps, like you, I stood in the parking lot of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis and looked up at the balcony where an assassin's bullet cut Martin Luther down. And I wept. I wept. And when someone thanks me for giving them courage to be in the struggle for social justice, I thank God that God worked through people like us, like you, and like me. And I expect there are people in Asheville who look to you, look at you, as one of those liberation types. You may be their Martin Luther King Jr. of Asheville. Now, I'm in full agreement with so many of my wise African-American friends who say that Martin Luther King Jr.'s words are as needed and relevant today as they were during the civil rights struggle. In our violent-filled world of inequality and injustice, Dr. King's call for nonviolent direct action to right wrongs is as true today as ever. Hear him as he said, "We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, The great triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. Hear him as he insisted. Peace through nonviolent means is neither absurd or unattainable. All other methods have failed. Thus, we must begin anew. Considering the fact that most of us are imperfect and the sum total of our lives is greater than its parts, let's try to live and speak and act in the liberating spirit of Martin Luther King. And let us live toward the best of our dreams. His agenda, his work, is far from being completed. And our work of challenging evil social systems and calling the world to repent and think and act differently is not easy. But God is with us in the struggle, and the Spirit of Jesus calls us to the task. Let's be thankful.